Hey, I was wanting to make a top 5 mistakes or 10 mistakes or 7 mistakes for somebody, classical, electric, or whatever. And I was like, I bet someone already made that video and I can just talk my shit about it. So let's do 5 mistakes beginners make. Now, what do you need to know about me? Not much, because maybe it doesn't mean anything. Playing guitar for how long? Oh, I don't know, 27 years. Got a master's degree. What? In classical? What? Played for governors, mayors. I've played with a solo act, not a solo act. Probably wasn't even that good, to be honest. Taught thousands and thousands of lessons. None of that means anything. It does not mean I know anything. It does not mean I'm any good, but it's just shit that people say. So I said it, and I proved this message. Let's go.
Hey guys, my name's Andy from andyguitar.co.uk, and in this video I'm talking you through my top 5 mistakes and bad habits that you want to be sure to avoid if you're learning guitar through YouTube, especially as a beginner. Now, number 1, top of that list is definitely wrist strumming, or what I call wrist strumming, which is essentially no matter what chord you're strumming, moving or tilting or pivoting the wrist like this, okay, rather than strumming from the elbows.
What? That's wrong. That's 100%. Hold on. Where's my fucking acoustic? I didn't know he was going to be wrong so quickly. I'm sure he has a good point here. That is, can we go full here? No, not him. Me. Yeah, no, that's bullshit. This, actually, it's a combination. It's a combination movement. When you're just regular strumming, you actually need a little tilt in your hand because the pick needs to be angled slightly up when it's going down the strings and slightly not up when you're going this way. So there's a little wrist action in there. And you look, when you're playing fast on a single string, it's all wrist. So also, where do the accents come from? Comes from a little more on your wrist, like you turn a doorknob. Yeah. So no, that's not true. I would say when you're focusing on strumming, you want to focus on rhythm. Make sure your rhythm is clean. Even if you're not hitting all the strings, rhythm is more important than everything. Your technique will come with time. Rhythm, though. Playing out of time, no, don't do that shit.
So, which is what we want to be doing. So when we're playing rhythm guitar with strumming chords, that strumming needs to be a movement pivoting from the elbow with the guitar nice and close into your body, not slipping down your leg.
No, also, if you pivot straight from the elbow, you're going to have a tendency to bang the absolute living shit out of the strings. You're going to get more of a sound like a if you're not rotating your wrist, it's just going to be loud as fuck. But with a little rotation of the wrist, you can slide across those strings.
Like this, not leaning over to see your chords, into your body and moving from the elbow. This allows a way more accurate strumming action, and also for you not to hurt the little muscles in the wrist and hand by doing a big motion with little muscles. We're going to use the big muscles of the arm.
Now, see, he's also talking shit because he's implying that you're going to have this over-exaggerated wrist motion, which is not true. That's an assumption.
I'm moving from the elbow in this sort of fashion.
And he is banging the shit out of the strings, like I just said would happen.
This brings me on to mistake number 2, which is for single string playing. So as a guitarist, we need to treat strumming chords, which is rhythm guitar, and picking single notes, which is essentially lead guitar, we need to treat them as 2 separate things for now as beginners, okay? Strumming is a movement of your arm from the elbow, okay? Gives a nice consistent action and means that we're always strumming all the strings evenly when we want to. When you're picking a single note, what you need to do is rest your wrist of your picking hand.
See, that's also not what you would want to do. You don't want to strum all the strings evenly. It's one of the first questions I get from beginners who are playing, which is like, why when I'm playing this chord, when I'm playing the exact same chords from the album and I'm playing them in exactly the same rhythm, why do I sound so different than what I'm trying to do? And it's because you're beating the shit out of all the strings, and guitarists don't beat the shit out of everything all the time.
Above the strings and above the sound hole or above your pickups if you're on an electric guitar, and have that contact with the guitar, and it is actually a movement from the wrist for single note playing.
No, you would not anchor your hand. You would hang, if you're going to anchor your hand anywhere, you don't anchor. I would never recommend anyone anchor with their wrist against the top of the guitar. The number one reason is you can't reach all the strings. Maybe best you can reach 3 strings. If you're going to anchor, you want to anchor on the bridge and anchor behind the saddle so you're not muting anything. But now you can do that same motion on any string you want. Yeah, you would never anchor up here or down here. Maybe you could use a pinky, an anchor below the strings with a pinky, because you don't need your pinky.
We want to have that wrist in contact with the guitar at all times when doing single string playing.
That's absolutely untrue. That's absolutely completely untrue. That's a terrible, terrible suggestion. And even if it's for beginners, you don't want to teach beginners a habit that then later on you have to correct them for. You don't want someone playing for months and months and months and months and then saying, hey, this thing you've been doing for months and months, stop doing it, because now it's become an ingrained habit. I've never seen anyone recommend that. I've taken lots of lessons. I've given lots of lessons. That does not make any sense to me at all. And you can also see with him wearing long sleeves, you can see that his cuff of his sleeve is now actually dangerously close to muting his low E and A string as he moves downward to play. Sorry, dude. I'm glad you're making a video, but that is one of the worst pieces of advice I've really ever heard. I've never seen that.
And if you're playing the thinnest couple of strings, you actually want to rest your wrist on the thicker strings themselves.
No! Absolutely fucking not. Why would you do that?
So we want the wrist itself on these thicker strings, crucial and are the foundation of your rhythm playing, so your strumming, and or your lead playing, which is your single string playing. The third biggest mistake that people commonly do is concerning the chord hand. We all have to start at some point learning our basic open chord shapes like E, A, and D. What can commonly happen when we start to learn some of the harder chord shapes, like a G and a C, is a definite one finger at a time motion happens when we're changing chords and when we're placing our chords. So basically what you are possibly doing at the moment and what you want to avoid is placing one finger down at a time.
Okay, he's right, but he's wrong. He's right, but he's wrong. As you play harder chords, so he's talking about C, A, G, E, and D. Sure, it applies to that, but you're going to progress as a guitarist, and you're going to play harder chords, and you're going to play at faster tempos. When you play a song that's faster, even if you're a very advanced guitarist, you're going to have no choice but to put your fingers down one at a time, which I call sequential planting. And so typically you're going to put them down from the bass to the treble because that's the direction your pick's going to be going. The simple way, here's the simplest thing I've done with rookies, and it's really good. It's actually, you have them play a chord. Let's call it a C chord. And I have them play it, not in a song. Play it, take their hands off, wiggle their fingers, and play it again. Wiggle, and go back. Wiggle, and go back. And then once you do that like 20 times, you're going to find that immediately the fingers are coming down almost all at once. The problem is if you do it in a song, they only get to practice the chord every time the chord comes around. So if there's, 4 measures, doesn't matter how many chords, it could be 4 chords, 2 chords, whatever. They're going to waste time getting back to the chord they're practicing. So the easiest thing to do is just take a chord, lift your fingers up. And the reason why I'm lifting your fingers up is to get rid of any physical memory you have of the spacing of the strings or the guitar itself. And then you put them back down. Doesn't matter if you're gonna do like a, whoops. I'm out of tune. What's, right? Doing like a weird chord or a 7 sharp 9, pick it up, or a major 7, pick it up, drop it, or a weird like a B minor 9-y thing, A minor 9, sorry. Pick it up, drop it, pick it up, drop it, and then that way you know that you have that chord on command when you need it.
That is how we learn these chords. It is not how you want to be practicing them. What we want to practice is being able to place your fingers in the correct place, strum your chord, but then lift off of that chord and have that shape memorized.
Now see, now look, when he picks his fingers up, his fingers are actually hovering on top of the chord. Well, that's because he's already been playing. He already knows how to play the guitar. That's not how you want to teach someone. You want them to lose all muscle memory of the guitar and then go back to it. It's drilling. If you're cramming for a test, right, you want to cram the questions on a test so that way you can actually recall them in a test. So if you're a beginner on the guitar, you're essentially cramming guitar knowledge. You want to cram the knowledge in a way that makes it dependable to recall that information. When you're hovering your fingers over the fretboard, that's a really great thing once you already know how to play. But if you're trying to drill a new technique or a new chord, you're actually cheating because you will feel overconfident in your knowledge because you're cheating with the placement of your fingers. Your fingers are already highlighting the answer. Just try it.
in your fingers so that your hand memorizes the position it's in and the position of each chord rather than you memorizing, and this is
No, see, that's what I'm saying. You don't want to memorize the position you're in, because when you're playing a song, you're going to be rotating through chords. So you can't have your hand, you can't be like three measures, like, oh, here comes this chord. That's just not how songs work.
is where the old neck stretch comes in, rather than you memorizing exactly where to put your fingers by placing them one at a time like this. So I'll go through that again. This is particularly evident on the C chord, but it can happen with a whole host of other chords as well. It's just really evident on the C chord. A lot of people play the C, 1, 2, 3, every time.
That's also not true. When he's saying it's evident on the C chord, he's saying that that's what he's noticed in his students. It could be an E chord, A chord, D chord, G. It could be any chord. It depends. What is the easy chord depends on what chord you teach your students first. Some teachers don't teach their students C first. They teach them an E or an E minor because it has two fingers, or an A sus because it has two fingers, or something like that. So a lot of times, the first couple of chords someone learns, they view as the easy chords, and then the chords you show them after that, they view as the hard chords, but it's just because of the order you taught them in. If you had reversed the order, they would have a reverse perception of those chords.
In a song, that's just not going to happen. If you're changing from G and C and trying to go 1, 2, 3, it's going to take an age. What you need to do is simply have your hand remember that shape. So what we're going to do is going to strum that C chord, and you can strum along with me now. Strum it normally. Have your hand stay as still as possible, but it wants to rise from the fret.
No. Your hand will stay as still as possible once you know what you're doing. A beginner's hand does not do that. A beginner's hand does not have that muscle memory. And you want to train the mechanics of moving to a shape, not repeating a shape, right? If I tell you one word, okay? If I tell you one word in Indonesian, maaf, means excuse me. And I'd say it back, maaf. And you say it, maaf, and maaf, and maaf, and maaf, and maaf. And we do that for 10 minutes. You will feel confident that you understand that word. But once we introduce more vocabulary, we have more Indonesian words, now all of a sudden, that's just not how you're going to recall information, because that's not how you're going to use the information, and that's not how the information, that's just not how the brain flows. I'm talking shit. I kind of like this.
Place that chord back down and then strum it again as a C chord. It can really help at this point to notice that my hand is on quite an angle rather than being straight like this. The C chord in particular is a really nasty stretch. It was the first chord I was taught when I was first learning, and it's very difficult to do when your fingers are placed in line with the frets. What you want to do is have your fingers on an angle and have them touching at certain points, and that can really help to memorize the position that your hand's in and memorize.
That's true. That's true in general, that the distance between your fingers when you're reaching, the distance between the digits overall, if you want to stretch, you get a bigger stretch by tilting. There is a downside to that, but it's a downside you have to deal with, is when you tilt the hand, you rob some of the fingers of their power. So specifically when I rotate this way, I get more power from my index finger and less power in my pinky, which is fine on the C chord because we're not using our pinky at all. But that's the downside of tilting. When you do tilt, you can reach a further distance between a particular grouping of fingers. You keep your hand flat, parallel. I like to think of parallel, your knuckles parallel to the fretboard. You keep them parallel when you want equal amounts of power and equal distribution between the fingers, and you're not worried about stretching.
These chords. You can even extend that towards rising from the chord that you're on and then going to another chord, for example the G, freezing or hovering just above that chord and then placing your hand down, and that really makes sure that your hands have memorized these chord shapes. The fourth most common mistake is what I've summarized as not getting the rhythm down. This is basically being too preoccupied with which downs and ups to use rather than getting the underlying beat to it and being able to tap your foot to a song as you're playing it to really internalize the rhythm and be able to do the correct down and up strumming naturally. So for example, if you have a strumming pattern, which I call the most common strumming pattern ever, and if we do it on...
I'm loving his thing about rhythm. This is true. Rhythm should be internalized, tapping your foot. The rhythm begins inside you before it happens on the guitar. So tapping your foot, nodding your head, even taking your hand and slapping it on your thigh or something, getting the rhythm away from the guitar is really important, because if you don't have the rhythm internally, then it's not going to magically happen once you play some chords. So I'm liking this.
On a G chord, for example. So this is going to be down, down, up, down. There's one of those beats that are underlying from that strumming pattern that we're not playing on. We're not playing on beat 3. So if you're tapping your foot, There's one
slow 'em
beat
down a
there
bit.
which you're tapping on and not strumming on. And this basically throws people right off. What can all too commonly happen with this strumming pattern and many others is people just look at the D's and U's, for example, and go down, down, up, up, down, 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 up, up.
So what was he doing? Da 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 da, like a kind of like a. So what I would do for a rhythm in that case is actually have them mute the strings. You just tell them, hey, lay your hand flat and then strum to where you can't hear any notes. Make it completely flat. And the rhythm starts in the right hand, assuming you're right-handed. And what we want to do is get that rhythm ingrained with no chord at all, right? Let's separate the rhythm from the chords. The chords are its own thing. So you want to get a... And why do we separate it? Because if that's wrong when we're just strumming with no chord, if that's wrong, it's guaranteed to be wrong once we actually start playing chords, right? If you take a task that has multiple elements and you break it down to its simplest element and you're still wrong, you're just going to be more wrong when you add the complexity to it. So it's one of the things to focus on and practice is what are we practicing? Why are we practicing? How do we know if we've got it right? How do we know if we have it bad? If we practice for 15 minutes, are we practicing the wrong thing? Is it too hard? How do we know? How do we measure that? And the easiest thing to do is take anything you're working on. Doesn't matter if you're playing high-level guitar, sweep picking or tapping or anything like that, or improvising. If you don't find yourself making a meaningful progress in, say, 5 to 10 minutes, you're probably working on something that's a little too hard. And you can either downgrade the difficulty of the music itself or simplify what you're working on. So instead of doing 16 notes at a time, you do 8 or 4 or 2. And then build back up like Legos. You want meaningful progress and measurable time. That's what you want. You want to be able to know in 5 minutes you got better. And people may right now watch this video and be like, 5 minutes? That's crazy. It's not crazy. How long do you want to practice something to get good at it? If you practice something for 5 minutes and you don't get any better at it, why would you assume 20 minutes is going to be the key or an hour is going to be the key? You want to get somewhat better in 5 minutes. If you're not somewhat better, either you're not clear on the assignment or the assignment itself is a little too difficult for you at that moment, and it's better to make it easier and then make it harder. This is a great key to memorizing, to being able to play on stage, to learning things that you might play in a single evening. It works for advanced, intermediate, beginners. Never have what my old mentor used to say, because he's passed away, never have inordinate faith in the future. Do not ever believe just because you're going to put in more effort or more time that your effort and time is going to translate into success. Measure your success. Know what's going on and work from there.
Down. And they've completely lost the rhythm, even though you're doing the correct downs and ups, what you're following. The big concept here is that when you're doing downs and up patterns, the down strums with 8 strumming patterns always happen on the beat, and the up strums always happen off the beat. So if you're doing 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, the downs always happen on the beat. 1, 2, and in between are the ands. 1 and 2 and. And from
you don't count that out with beginners. It doesn't help them because unless they played another instrument, they already can count rhythm. A beginner can't keep track of time in their head and the strumming pattern up and down and the chords. So again, you separate it. Then I would take one chord and be like, hey man, demonstrate this rhythm for me on one chord. And then I say, here's what I want you to do. Let's say we're going between a G and a D. I want you to take this rhythm, and that rhythm never stops no matter what. You do that rhythm all the time. And I just want you to attempt to change chords. And if you hit all wrong notes, Don't worry about it. So let's do all wrong notes. Sorry, that's not wrong enough. Let's go wronger. And we're teaching to keep rhythm through the chord changes. Then what you would do is say, let's take that rhythm, slow it down. And now let's see if we can improve those chord changes. But we want to keep the rhythm intact. And also teach that slowing down tempo is a really great way to get better. And it's going to be one of the most essential things you can do, is instead of slamming your head against a wall at a certain tempo, keep slowing down. Because when you slow down, you have more time to concentrate on, one, your mind as far as what's coming up, what am I doing next, your left hand, what chords am I playing, and your right hand, what is the rhythm. As you slow down the tempo, you have more time to focus on each attribute of playing the fucking guitar. The idea is to practice to where you don't have to think about it, and that's how you go super fast. Because when you're going really, 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 really fast, you can't think about the notes. I'm not thinking about any notes or numbers. Those are just hand mechanics.
From there, it doesn't matter what combination of downs and ups are happening, that is still prevalent. So if we demonstrate down, down, up, down again, 1, 2, and 4. 1, 2, and 4. The down strums are always on the beat and the up strums are off the beat. And if you miss any strums, you need to keep your hand moving and, of course, move it from the elbow. The fifth and final mistake.
I will still say again that I find when I'm working with beginners who've never played any instrument at all, counting out the time for them really is useless. You gradually teach time over time, but I would say with most beginners, even in the first year, time and beats, pretty useless. I usually just go, hey man, when your foot's on the floor or when your foot's in the air. Because if you get them to tap their foot, they always know if their foot's hitting the ground or their foot's in the air. Instead of going, well, on beat 2, do this, and on beat 3, and on the off beat, we do this, and then no. Teach everything separate. Rhythm is its own thing, pitch is its own thing, chords is its own thing. Keep everything separate until it's brought up to a good level, and then start combining it.
It is a more general comment about what people choose to practice. It is simply that people tend not to master the basics before moving on to the harder stuff. It sounds obvious, but this is mainly to do with the songs that people choose. So also,
that's funny. He says people tend not to master the basics before they move on to harder stuff, but he's attempting to teach beginners with not the basics.
And people are drawn to the songs that they know or recognize, and that ends up being these classic guitar songs like Wonderwall for the last 10 or 20 years has been the song to play on acoustic guitar, and before that, House of the Rising Sun was very popular as a first beginner song, and it's just not where you want to start, especially if you haven't ever done anything musical before. You may, after many hours of practice, be able to play that song to a somewhat recognizable version of it, but you're not going to be training yourself with the right techniques and fundamentals that are going to see you through your hopefully many years of...
He sounds like me when I first started teaching. No. The number one thing you need to learn is desire and motivation. That's the number one thing you need. Desire and motivation. That leads to everything else. That leads to study. It leads to discipline. It leads to time. So if someone picks a song that's a little over their head, or even decently over their head, if they love it and they're motivated, then I try to show them what I can to get them on that path, because they might practice 2 hours a day on a song they love that's over their head, but they won't practice 20 minutes a day on something that's easier that I think is good for them. So yeah, in an ideal world, we would love to put all these little Lego blocks, these little tiny building blocks, and everyone goes from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, and they do exactly what they're supposed to, when they're supposed to, certain minutes per day. But that's not how humans work. Humans need motivation. They need to actually, if they're gonna put in time and money, and they're gonna quote do something they don't want to do, when it comes to guitar, they're not going to do something they don't want to do. Not unless you're looking for, your approval or something like that. Students do things they don't want to do because they need grades, right? Workers do things they don't want to do because they want a paycheck. But people who are studying guitar or taking guitar lessons because they want to play guitar, they're taking the lessons because they want to play. There's something they want to do. And so when you start introducing in things that they don't want to do, but you tell them to do it just because it's good for them, you're going to find a really low adherence to that. And then now we're going to have a rift. We're going to have a rift between the instructor and the student. The instructor is going to be like, well, why didn't you practice enough? What's the issue? The student's going to feel bad coming into lesson because they already know they didn't practice enough. And then you're going to be trying to judge them on what they didn't put enough effort into. And the whole thing just gets murky and hard to suss out. I would way rather have someone putting in 100% on something that is not the right thing than putting in 50% on something that is the right thing, because if they're putting in 100%, I can actually judge them. I can judge, this is what's going on with your playing, because I know you took this much attention and detail to it. Even if it came out terrible, I know you put your heart into it. So now I know exactly what you're capable of doing. If someone gives you a half-assed commitment to their playing, when you're a teacher, you start giving suggestions, but you're not sure that those suggestions are actually correct because the person didn't actually try their best. And my goal as a teacher is to give someone exactly what they need, exactly what they want. My job is not to tell them, hey, let's do this for the next 6 months, and then now 6 months from now, I'll give you what you want. If you're paying me and you're taking time out of your day to sit down with me, my job is to get you to what you want absolutely as quickly as possible. And if I cannot do that, you should fire me. So I cannot lead you on this 12-month, 24-month goose chase of, here, do all the things I tell you, and then magically 2 years from now you'll be able to do what you want to do. That's bullshit, and I'd suggest you fire anyone that says that. You would never have a plumber come to your house and be like, he's like, I'll do something else other than fix the toilet. You wouldn't go to a restaurant and they'd be like, no, you're not ready for the cheeseburger. Let me make you this salad. Come back and that doesn't work anywhere else. It only works here because there are not enough guitar players, and guitar students don't know what the signs are of a bad teacher, so they will stay with a bad teacher for an inordinately long period of time. And the teacher will reinforce that by saying, well, if you practiced an hour a day, you practice 2 hours, hey, if you're doing what I said all the time, you'd be fine. I don't like that. And to be fair, I was that way for probably about 3 or 4 years as a teacher. I had to get it fucking knocked in my noggin, and that was not the way to go.
Guitar playing. So you need a whole bunch, 10s and 20s and 30 songs that are dead easy for you to spot the pattern in these songs, for you to spot the ingredients, and to be able to...
That's not true. You don't need 10, 20, or 30. That's absolutely a load of horse shit. I don't know why you need more than 1 or 2. If you can do it, you can do it. We don't need 27 million ways of switching to a C chord. Yeah, you could go, well, it could come from a D to a C, or an A to a C, or a G to a C, or an E to a C, or from... Once you can do it 2 or 3 ways, man, you can fucking do it. That's also ridiculous. Another thing my mentor said, if you got a wheel that's squeaky, put some oil on it. Don't dump the whole fucking can. So if you have a problem moving into or out of a chord shape, do a couple of exercises to fix that, and do them frequently enough that you see progress. But we don't need 30. It's like your shoulders, man. You don't need 37 shoulder exercises. You need 2 or 3 that you do consistently enough to see progress. This is a trick. I don't know if he knows this is a trick, but this is a trick. When you give people 30 things to do instead of 3, they'll always feel like, oh, well, the issue is I didn't get to those 30. Once I get to the last half of the 30, then I'll be successful. Bullshit. If you do something 5 times bad, 5 different ways, why would you come up with 25 other ways to do it badly? Fix the fucking 5. Then take more onto your plate. I'm loving this.
To fully master these ingredients, such as the basic open chords and strumming patterns and how songs are structured. Get playing real songs as soon as possible, but make sure those songs are way easy. Other things I really recommend are having a repertoire of songs that you're building, so that whenever it comes to actually perform for someone,
That's true. Nothing mean to say there. You should have a list. You should start building a notebook as soon as possible. of things that you've practiced and played, because your mind's going to escape you. Especially, I mean, nowadays, make a Google Doc on your phone or Google Sheets, because when it's like, what do you know how to play? A lot of times when someone asks you to play something, that's when your mind goes blank. Yeah, definitely have a list. That's a great idea. Nothing mean to say about that.
Someone says, hey, you've been learning guitar for a couple of months now, play us something. You've actually got a couple of songs that you've played for that few months that are there ready for you to play in front of people, and you'll do it.
That's the only piece of advice so far you said that is spot on, A+ advice.
Great job at it. So they're the top 5 mistakes that people learning guitar online commonly make.
This guy's very nice. Very nice. Sorry, dude, if you're watching this video and I'm talking shit about you. But I'm going to be honest. Why would I not fucking be honest? This comes from this last thing I'll say about my mentor who died when he was 78, who founded the guitar program at the University of Georgia and Georgia State University, and I think in another couple of other colleges. He created the fucking guitar program that you get a PhD or DMA in, doctoral degree. He said that when... because I came to him once I was teaching at the university level, and I was kind of going through some issues like, I don't know, some people aren't motivated, some people don't practice, what do I do, blah, 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 blah. And he said to me, he said, which I think I might have hit on this in this video, he said that when people pay you money for your, quote, expertise, whatever level you happen to be at as a teacher or educator, performer, guitarist, whatever, when people pay you for that, you have to bring them the best of what you have. Don't string them out. Don't tell them next week we'll do blah, 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 blah. Give them the absolute best of what you have every single time. They're paying you. It's your fucking job. You're supposed to be an expert, right? Give them great information. And if you can't, I've done this many times. You know, depending on your financial situation, you might not be able to. I've had many lessons where at the end of the lesson, I told someone, this one's on me. I'm like, what do you mean? I said, I don't feel I gave you the best information. This one's on the house. This has been fun, rambling about guitar.